Hi everyone, welcome to the parish. This is our third Sunday in Lent and the third Sunday in our series looking at the statements that Jesus made recorded in the Gospel of John where he says, I am. Last week we looked at his statement where he said, I am the bread of life. Today we are looking at the I am statement from John 8, which was, I am the light of the world. So we will get to that statement, but before we get there, I want to tell you a quick story from my personal life, a story from the Hebrew scriptures, and then we will move into our story about Jesus from John 8. So my family lives in Michigan. It snows here a lot, and it gets pretty cold in the winter. It feels like the winter goes on and on and on. And so usually, if it's in our budget, in February, we will hop on a plane and go somewhere warm, normally Florida. So several years ago, we were in Orlando, and we were aware while we were on our trip that there was a snowstorm back home. And we checked the weather forecast, and we saw that on the day that we were to travel home, everything looked clear. And so we kind of went, whew, those poor suckers in Michigan dealing with all that stuff. And here we are hanging out with Mickey and having our feet up by the pool. And we just kind of went about our week. So the day we needed to go home, we decided to leave our resort pretty early. We needed to leave ourselves some extra time because during the week we had had a rock that had come up and hit the windshield of our rental car. And so we needed to get that car returned to the airport, and we thought we may have some extra hoops to jump through since we were returning a damaged car. So we left plenty early. We got stuck in some traffic on the freeway, and we thought that's okay. We still have plenty of time, and we'll just be glad to get there. We just want to get home. So we got to the airport. We dealt with the rental car company, and they clearly were used to having people return the cars damaged because they expedited the process for us. We got done pretty quickly, and we went, whew, that hurdle is cleared. We are ready to get home. And we went inside the airport with our bags, and we needed to get in the line to check our big bags, and there was a long line. And we thought, that's okay, we have plenty of time. We left early. We'll get in line, and we'll be glad when this step is done. So finally we got done with that step, and we were just so focused on wanting to get home. So then we went and got in the line for security, and it was long, and our kids always get grilled by TSA, all these questions asked, just to make sure that they're actually our kids and supposed to be traveling with us. And so between that and taking off belts and taking off our shoes and putting all the things in the trays, we just got that step done, and we went, phew, we're glad to have that hurdle cleared. Now we can head for home. We were plenty early, and so we found a space at the airport. We all got out our devices, and there was Wi-Fi, and the kids were finishing up some homework that they had missed while they were on our vacation. And so we kind of kept looking at our watches and just thinking like, oh, just let the time pass. We just want to get on that plane. We just want to get home. And so finally we got on our plane. We boarded the plane. The flight was uneventful. We got home, and we're like, whoo, one more hurdle cleared. All we have to do now is get our car from the valet service and drive home. Well, what we hadn't anticipated was that because of the heavy snowstorms, the valet service was behind because the places where they park the cars were all piled up with snow. And so they were having to go and dig out every car that they were bringing back for their customers. And so we waited and waited and waited for them to bring us our car for like 2 hours. And we live 15 minutes from the airport. We could have made like 8 round trips in the amount of time that it took for them to bring us our car. So finally it came, and it's actually a minivan and has sliding doors. And so we got in, and my son went to close his door, the sliding door next to him, and it wouldn't close all the way. Something had frozen inside the mechanism, and we couldn't get it all the way open. We couldn't get it all the way shut. And it was only open, maybe 4 or 5 inches. And so we said to our son, listen, you're a teenager. Put on your seatbelt. Don't stick your head or any body parts out the door. You're going to be fine. We're not taking the freeway home. It'll be pretty uneventful. So we rode home that way, and it was just kind of a pain in the neck. And I know my son's sitting there with the cold air blowing in, and he's got to be thinking, I just want to get home. So we get home, and we're eager. It's like midnight. We're ready to just get in bed. Well, there had been so much snow that even though our neighbor had come through with his snowblower and taken a pass at our driveway, more snow came after that. And so we could barely get our van into the driveway. And we have a compact car that was parked in the garage. And we were like, we have to be ready for business as usual tomorrow. It's midnight. We're going to have to get rid of this snow. So the kids and I are lugging in our luggage and trying to get all that unpacked. My husband's outside with the shovel trying to dig us out and be ready for morning. And all we could think was, we just want to get where we're comfortable. We're cold. We're tired. We've jumped through all these hurdles today. We just want to get to bed. We want to be safe. We want to be snuggled in. We want to be able to go to sleep. We just want to be done with this travel stuff. And I think sometimes we end up on this journey in life in that kind of mindset. We end up in places that are uncomfortable, that we know are temporary. And so we just want to get from those places, those stopovers. We want to get from those stopping places to a staying place, a place that's permanent, a place of rest, a place of peace. Into the chaos of our lives, in those stopping places, the light of God still shines. Light has been a strong metaphor for spirituality and the presence of God all throughout the story of God. In the earliest Hebrew scriptures, where there's the poem about creation, it talks about how the earth was formless, it was desolate, it was empty, it was void, it was chaotic. And Genesis 1:3 tells us that there was darkness over the surface of the deep, but the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Into the darkness, into the void, God's light shone. We see this in a very real and meaningful way in the story of the Israelite people, because in Exodus 13, they have escaped from slavery. They are wandering in the desert. They keep ending up at these stopping places, these places where they have to unpack their tents and stay a while, and then move on and go somewhere else. They haven't yet reached their homeland. And God was with them through that whole process. In fact, Exodus says that by day the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way. And at night, the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of fire to give them light so that they could travel by day or by night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. That's from Exodus chapter 13. And so in this darkness, in this moving from stopping place to stopping place to stopping place, all they can think about is, we just want to get home. And God's light shone. God lit their way in the desert so that they could travel at night. Can you imagine how dark it is in the desert at night? That you can't even see your hand in front of your face. And yet God so brilliantly lit their way that they were able to move on. And it's a good reminder for us that in a stopping place for us, when we're in an unwanted place, we can remember this is not our final destination. This is not the whole book of my life. This is a chapter. And when we can't see the end of the road, we can know that God will shine a light to help us find the next right step, that God is with us, that God is at work. This is what they were celebrating in John 8, when Jesus made his statement about being the light of the world. You see, after the Israelites got settled finally, God commanded them to celebrate and remember every year for 7 days, this time when they wandered in the desert and were nomads. It was called the Festival of Booths, and for 7 days every year, they were told that they were to live in temporary shelters. They were told to be mindful of the fact that they were once wanderers and that God was their light. And so Jesus was at the Festival of Booths, commemorating that remembrance of their ancestors when he said, "I am the light of the world." There was one night of the festival particularly called the Grand Illumination, where there were torches lit in the temple courtyard, and they were so bright that they illuminated all of Jerusalem. Here's the interesting thing. Guess what those torches were fueled by? The wicks were actually the old undergarments of the priests. If you're a priest, maybe you really looked forward to the Festival of Tabernacles or the Festival of Booths because you knew you were going to be getting new underwear soon. And so the people would sing and dance and be reminded of God's light. They would celebrate. And Jesus is saying, I am the light of the world. Can you imagine? He looks around this brilliantly lit Jerusalem and shocks them by saying, I am the light of the world. You're celebrating this light? But whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. That's from John 8, verse 12. Jesus is the light of life, not just a temporary light that's fueled by old rags, not a temporary light that's just there to help us get through the stopping places. The light of life shines. In the stopping places, it also shines on the staying places, on the places that we get to that we feel like there's permanence. Because sometimes those staying places aren't as stable as we thought they would be. We think we're in a comfortable place, and then a pandemic hits, or a medical diagnosis throws us for a loop, or we lose a job, or a relationship that we counted on that was home to us fractures. And in those staying places that suddenly feel very uncertain, the light of Jesus shines. Through the chaos, through the desolation of those places that once felt secure, Jesus is saying, for those who understand that life is a journey, for those who seek light and direction through all of life's stopping places, I will be your pillar. And in those difficult moments of suffering, God is present. I'm not one to say that God brings suffering. Theologians don't agree on that. But what I will say is this: there may not be a reason for your suffering, but God brings reason to suffering. Through those difficult times where our staying places suddenly become uncertain and we start to look forward to the next chapter, God will bring something good out of those things. God doesn't cause suffering, but God gives reason to suffering. And we can rely on the character of God. We said several weeks ago that when Moses asked God, what is your name? The answer God gave can be translated a number of ways. One of which is, I will be there, howsoever I will be there. And the God who shines light into the chaos, into the desolation, into the dark places, will be there. Howsoever, God will be there. Let us pray together. I read this prayer for you as our closing. It says, God, we seek security, peace, and clarity. And in these stopping places where there's uncertainty and desolation and emptiness, we long to know the light that gives life. Will you illuminate the void in our hearts? May we see your light shining in the dark places. And I offer you this blessing. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord be gracious to you. May the light of God's face shine upon you and give you peace, both now and forevermore. Amen. Grace and peace.